Hello, my name's Andrew Garrett from the Langham Hotel, and we're going to make the Choux Time cake, which is a choux bun filled with the cream and a cherry on the top. And now we're going to make the choux pastry for the Choux Time choux. So we're going to boil milk and butter. The salt and sugar. What's really important with the choux pastry is that we make sure that the butter is completely melted. So now the milk and the butter is coming to the boil, just to make sure that the butter is completely dissolved, and then we're ready to add the flour. So you can add the flour all in one go. I'm just going to mix it to a thick paste. So the gas is off here. And there you can see that the paste is thick, everything is mixed well together. And something that we are told to do with choux pastry is that to dry it out. But as you can see, there's the steam coming already out of the mix. If we turn the heat back on and dry out the choux pastry, we tend to find that at the bottom of the pan is where the flour sticks. And actually it's something we want the flour to stay within the mix because that's what absorbs the moisture. So all I'm doing is just mixing it slowly using the heat that's already in the pan, just to get rid of the excess moisture. So I'll just do that for a minute or so. And now we're ready to add the eggs gradually. Now when you're adding the eggs in the choux pastry, you add a small amount. Mix it in to the dough, and then you gradually add until you get it to the right consistency. And you might find that with choux pastry that you don't always add the same amount of egg. It will all depend on maybe the flour that you're using, the amount of time that you've just left it to dry, or if the liquid has evaporated too much at the beginning. But you'll see that the choux pastry is ready more when the texture is right. What the egg does in the choux pastry, it's the egg that's going to enable the puff or give the puff into the choux pastry. What you do have to be careful is not to add too much egg. So one final mix to get a nice smooth and shiny paste. Now we've got a choux paste which is ready to pipe. So now we've transferred the choux pastry into a piping bag. We've got a number 10 nozzle, so that's a 10mm nozzle, and we're just going to pipe onto a silicone mat. So it's important to leave a big enough gap between. So obviously they will expand in the oven and puff up. Just rolled some sweet pastry as thin as possible between sheets. We've frozen it and then just cut it out into small discs. We're going to put one of these on top of each choux, and this is going to give us a crunchy texture, and it will also help to hold the shape of the choux, so we should have a nice round choux once these have been baked. We're going to do half that way and half without. While the choux is baking, we're going to make the filling, which is the simple mousseline cream. The first step is to mix the eggs with the sugar and the flour. Something that's very important when you're making this cream is that you always mix the sugar and the eggs first. What's very important is that the sugar dissolves in the egg. If we don't dissolve the sugar in the eggs, then the sugar will absorb the moisture of the eggs, and what you'll be left with is the lumps of fat that are left in the egg yolk that don't ever disappear, so you'll have a very lumpy cream. Then we add the flour, and in here we've got a mix of corn flour and flour, so that it gives us a thickening agent as well as an agent that will give a little bit of elasticity to the mix. And then we're ready just to add it to the milk. Now we're going to boil the milk for the base of the cream. So we're going to pour the milk in and bring it to the boil. Now, while the milk's boiling, I'm just going to explain about the gelatine. The gelatine that we're using is a powder that we've added water to. So our base recipe for our gelatine mass, as we call it, is 1 gram of powder for 5 grams of water. So the milk is boiling, the gelatine is ready there, and we're just going to take our eggs, sugar and flour that we mixed earlier, and as the milk comes to the boil, we're going to pour directly the eggs, the flour into the mix and the sugar into the mix, leaving the heat still on, and we're just going to whisk that into our cream, and you can see that it's going to thicken very, very quickly to give us something that resembles a traditional pastry cream. So now the pastry cream is cooked, we're going to drop in the gelatine, turn off the heat and just dissolve the gelatine in the mix. Now all the gelatine's dissolved, the cream is cooked, we're ready to put it into a container. So now the cream has cooled down to 40 degrees. You'll see that we've put a cling film on top, and this cling film is just to stop any skin forming on top of the cream, which will as well create a lumpy texture, grainy texture in the cream. So the cream's at 40, our butter is just slightly softened. We're going to add it into the cream and just whisk it in. Now, this is something that you can do the day before you need this cream. And once this butter's dissolved into the cream, we're just going to put it in the fridge, and it can be left overnight, or within a couple of hours it's ready to use. So the choux have just come out of the oven. We've left them to cool. As you can see, they've kept a shape and they've got this textured finish, which is the sweet pastry. So we're just going to leave those there for now. We've got the base of our mousseline cream, so the pastry cream with butter. I'm going to add a very small amount of mascarpone again too. And also just a small amount of grated tonka. So tonka, it's a bean. You tend to find it in Venezuela. It can be used in perfume quite a lot to give you a vanilla scent. So we just, the tonka, the base pastry cream and mascarpone, we're just going to whisk it together to get the texture that we want. We're basically just making sure that there's no lumps of mascarpone in this cream. As you can see, a very quick mixing. So that we'll just leave here. We're going to slice our choux. In here we've just got a cherry jam. So it's cherries, quite a small amount of sugar and a little bit of pectin just to help to set it. So we're going to pipe into the base of our choux. It's just an addition to give us a slightly extra or a stronger cherry flavour in the choux. We pipe into the base of each. Then we're going to fill the piping bag with the mousseline cream and fill each choux with a good amount of cream. And you can either just cover with the lid of the choux or just as decoration with the cherry. And now we have the cherry choux time.